Yeah, boy.
Yo, Rob. Who's in the
Yo,
room with
Munir.
us today?
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. It's Saturday, right? I don't know what
Rob
day it is.
Tringali. Welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
God,
appreciate it.
You're a
Yeah,
sight for
this is
sore
good.
eyes. It's nice to have another
Yeah.
Rob in the room.
Yeah, we need more
Rob and
Robs in the
Rob.
world. Are people being called? Are people naming their kids Rob these days? Do you
That's a
think?
good question.
I don't know.
Nora has no Robs, as far as I know, in her class.
Yeah, I don't. Luke as well. I ask this question every time I see him. I was like, I don't know if there's any Robs being named. I think maybe we might be the last of the Robs
You
out
might
there.
get some
Robbie
Robertos.
Maybe, yeah. There's definitely some Robertos.
We have a lot of Colombians in our town, and
Yeah,
no
yeah.
Robertos, and a lot of
Oh, no,
Italian
yeah, okay.
Americans and no Robertos. So,
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Rob, are you a Roberto?
No, I'm not a Roberto. Just a Robert.
Okay.
Robert Jr., actually.
Oh, and your dad was not a Roberto either?
No, he was a Bob. People called him. He was pure Robert. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
welcome to Yo Munir. Yo Munir.
Creativity.
The happiest guys on the internet.
What's going on, brother? Yo Munir. Rob, welcome to Yo Munir, a show celebrating creativity, hosted by the happiest guys on the internet. I'm Rob Haddad, a former producer and director who spent his career in sports, media, and technology.
And I'm Munir Haddad, the co-founder of international award-winning advertising agency Kiosk and a supporter of stakeholder capitalism. And Rob, who do we have in the room today?
Wow. The legend himself, Rob Tringali. Rob, from the sidelines of your favorite sporting events, the legendary photographer, Mr. Rob Tringali. Rob, welcome to the pod.
Well, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah.
It's fun to wake up on a Saturday and do this. This is actually very cool.
Judging by the luggage behind you, you've just gotten off the road.
We we just piled some. This is the first time I think I see my office in a month. So,
Wow.
Well, the reason for that, of course, is that Rob is a world traveling sports photographer who's covered almost half of all Super Bowls played, 28 World Series, the Olympics, FIFA World Cup, and countless other notable events.
Many. Yeah, go ahead.
You, sir, are a brilliant storyteller, a good friend, and here to share your experiences with us. So thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it again.
Yeah. Munir, welcome.
Rob, nice to see you. I'm excited to talk to the other Rob and have someone else to provide some color commentary on the world of creativity and how it relates to sports and storytelling.
I love that.
That's great.
I love that.
No, very
Rob,
cool. Yeah.
We'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. Start from when? From a youth? From a little kid?
I think if you just give us an overarching, I shared your bio.
Yeah,
I shared your
fair
bio,
enough.
but what have you been up to?
No.
And
I mean, it's been. Yeah. So how old am I? 56. Just kind of crazy at this point in my life, right? It's hard to believe, but yeah. So grew up Staten Island, New York. Was born in 1969, which is a pretty cool year. Yeah, right. And then kind of lived always in the Northeast, moved around Jersey, Manhattan, living in New Jersey now. Basically wanted to be a professional athlete when I was, a young kid. You want to, the dream to play, shortstop for the New York Yankees. Didn't hit my growth spurt since I was about 19, so I was blown away by fastballs when I was my freshman in high school, and then it became very apparent that the professional career wasn't going to to make it. So started to kind of think about other things. My dad actually had one of the first sports photo agencies, which I always kind of kid that, it could have been like Getty Images, but
Sure.
they were, and I should be on an island right now, just like drinking
Retired.
on a yacht, right? But, my dad liked to, he had a good time with himself and just whatever, just, things just didn't pan out that way. But yeah, but they did start this first agency, an agency called Focus on Sports. So I was around sports photography when I was a kid. I went to my first Super Bowl when I was 9 years old, and would see
Wow.
the Walter Yoses and the Neil Leifers at the hotels, and at 9 years old. So I was aware of the business as a kid. Um, and that, World Series, things like that. 1977 World Series, Yankees Dodgers. We go down to like the photo box. So this was, and then I would go to my dad's office on, my parents were divorced early, so he lived in the city. So I would go to spend time in the office and just have, just slides, just like piles of
Yeah.
like transparencies, slide sheets, and they would just like put me on a light box and just, I would just like look at, Yankee World Series games and Super Bowls, and I would just like, take the loop. And so I was always, around photography. For whatever reason, this didn't like resonate as like a career choice when I'm, in high school, so I was, just didn't seem like, just seemed almost like unreal because, like I said, my parents were divorced and I lived with my stepdad, and my stepdad had like, put the suit on, went to work on Wall Street, and just seemed like that was like what dads was supposed to do. That's like more of a lifestyle. Like, so, and then I actually interned with his company, you know, in the bond market, you know, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, and like, oh, this is going to be my career. And realized like I had no idea what they were doing. I had no idea what, bonds and 10-year bonds, 15, 30-year, whatever it was. Didn't want to put a suit on to go to work. And at 16, 17, I'm sitting there going, well, this is not going to work. So let's figure this out. And then I ended up assisting some of my dad's photographer friends, and I went to a game in RFK Stadium when I was like 17. We ended up flying down like a People's Express from LaGuardia to down to DC. Went to, I mean, it was the idea you could fly to a football game in another city like on the same day. Like, you fly to DC, take a cab, get to RFK Stadium, go, shot a game, cab back to the airport and be, I was at my dad's apartment on the Upper East Side at like, 8 p.m. that night. Like the fact that you can do that in a day, but then, obviously walking on the field and being part of that excitement, just was like, at that point, I was like, all right, I have to figure out how to, be around sports in some way, and photography was now like the into that. So, how do I do that? And then basically started to kind of like that process of, basically, I ended up getting a night job at my stepdad's company, made money, bought gear, and then ended up trying to fly myself around the country, and sucked at being a photographer because it was hard. I mean, it was manual focus, it was film, and it was not easy, but progression started, and 40 years later, here we are.
You're taking a nice like leap over the work, but the work is like where it
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah,
Making the
yeah.
mistake. Rob and I talk about the making the mistakes is like where
Yeah.
you learn stuff.
Exactly. I mean, looking back, and any advice I give young people, is trying stuff, and making mistakes. And so early on it was like, I found like the Sports Illustrated guys that I admired, like and I was more like football. Football was like my sport, when I first started. And then it was like the John Beavers of the world, guys who are like constantly being published every week, and I would just find them on the sidelines and mirror them. I'd see what gear they were using, I'd see what positions they had, and literally just but then it was amazing. Like I would, manually focus like let's say like a Steve Largent back then, or a Jerry Rice, catching a ball over the middle, and I had like the fans in focus in the background, and I'd pick up my Sports Illustrated that week, and John Beaver would have like this great tack sharp image of a over the shoulder catch, and then it was discouraging because you were like, wow, how do you do that? How do you ever follow focus sports action in that kind of way on a consistent basis? But it was a repetitive, like, I'd go out to high school games and whatever I could find and just practice and practice and practice. And luckily, luckily as time went on, you do get better. And but it was, and sports was just like, at that point it was just pure action photography. Like that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like the Walter, I wanted to get those covers of Sports Illustrated. And so it was all like action related, peak action, peak moments. And, and like I've always, it's, what's great about sports photography that in that breadth is, there is no safety net. Like you make it, you don't make it, you have a great night, celebrating, or you are you just put your head in the sand and you just, are discouraged and until the next event, Yeah.
Well, and you're also, when are you finding out whether you got the shot or not? I mean, I think we're a digital generation now, and you can immediately crimp your photos, right?
Yeah.
And look to see whether you got the shot.
Yeah.
When you're shooting film,
what? Yeah, you wait. It was maybe a couple of days later. You would, because you'd fly to a game, right? You would fly to L.A., San Francisco, whatever, Miami, and you fly back home that night, and then you'd drop the rolls of film at a lab in New Jersey in the morning, and picked it up maybe then later that day or the next day, and then you'd. I was impatient, so I would just literally just like take the boxes in the photo lab in the light box that they had there and just like kind of riff through the images and just try to see, what I got and things like that. But yeah, it was not like it is today where it was you had to wait
Was
a
there
while to kind of
stress?
see it.
Was there stress associated with that waiting period, or?
I think it was more it was almost like Christmas, kind of like I felt. It was almost like, opening like a gift, and then you just didn't know what was in there. And so there was a era of, just seeing these images, like, you went out to go shoot Bo Jackson in LA and just like, we always went after light too. So it was always like, so it was always these beautiful, like, Kodachrome or Fujichrome, like, the colors were just always like very impactful. So just even when you open, even just normal looking images, regular images would, kind of have this little pop to them, and you would just, once you laid them out on the light box, it's kind of like, feeling of, like I said, like Christmas, like you're opening this like package and this gift, and you're just kind of looking through it. And so yeah, and maybe I was naive to the fact that, I had any pressure on me. It was just more just like exciting and, loved doing what I did and just want to get better at it, and this was part of it. So
you almost need that enthusiasm and that mindset, though. That's a mindset thing that you had that others would be like, like Rob Haddad put it like, are you nervous? And Rob Tringali's like, no, it's Christmas. I mean,
no, it was Christmas. No, it was exciting. Thinking about it, we can go, I can, stuff like this, you can talk forever, but as a sports fanatic, you're watching games on TV as a kid, and next thing you know, you're shooting a USC game on a Saturday, and then the next day you're shooting a Raiders game or whatever, or you're driving down to San Diego to shoot a Chargers game. That was like fantasy life to me. That was like, I didn't even care if I was like losing money at that point. I was spending like, it just was like, I cannot believe I'm doing this. Like I'm on the sideline, I'm shooting these games that I used to watch on TV, and now I'm like on the sideline right here. And now it's just a matter of just like, now how do I get good at this? But like early on, it was just like pure, just bliss.
Happy to be here.
Just happy to be here. Loved again, like if anybody wants to, if you YouTube, when the Giants played the 49ers in the NFC Championship game.
Which one?
The one that they beat, when Matt Barr kicked the field goal to put him against the Bills in the Super Bowl. I was at that game, and I was a kid, and you can see I was just caught up in it. Under the goalpost, when Matt Barr kicks the field goal, is a knucklehead like me in a bright yellow champion sweatshirt who lost it and just is like cheering as the ball like just tucks in the left upright. And I look at that video sometimes and I'm like, I mean, you were just like, you just shouldn't have, you weren't ready for that yet. You were just like, you were still in this fandom stage. And I had a, definitely like, a talk with myself during that week when I saw the highlight. I was like, you're in this to like be a photographer or you're going to be a fan. But if you're a fan, you're never going to be great. You're going to be just, and there are people on the sidelines who are more, are at least whenever are more fans than. So it was like every time I see that highlight, I see it. But yeah, I was, it was like excited to be there and loved every second of it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the Steve Largent example of like the fans being in focus, but him out of focus. So there must have been an image for you to have nailed for you to get that feeling of anticipation versus nervousness, right? Because that's got to be a threshold you cross.
There was.
Like,
they're really. I mean, and maybe like I probably backed it up a little bit because this is probably where I felt like I could do, but looking back at it, wasn't. But it was it was an image of Florence Griffith Joyner, at the 1988 Olympic trials that were in Indianapolis, and that was like one of the guys, one of my dad's photographers had a extra credential and said, hey, do you want to help and you could shoot a little bit, so ended up flying out to Indianapolis that summer. And Flo-Jo was a big deal. Carl Lewis, it was like Edward Moses, Jackie Jordan Kersey. But so Flo-Jo, she was 100-meter race, and he said, "All right, just stay behind the finish line," and he was going to do like some starting stuff. But he's like, "Hey, when she, just making it, she comes across the finish line, just try to grab some shots of her." And I didn't know, like a lot of photographers at that time, when they would pre-focus on the finish line, like that would be like, you would get guaranteed like a shot, like, and that was, I didn't know that at the time. So I was trying to like, focus, and I ended up, nailing a really nice picture of her with her arms up. I still think that I think that's still the 100-meter record still. I think it still holds the women's. And then that image, not my image, but another photographer made that same image that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated that week. So I remember seeing my slide, and then it was at that point, looking back at it, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. It's like somebody coming down, but when you make an image and you see it on cover of Sports Illustrated, it kind of does give you that like, hey, I can do this, like, so it kind of, drove that passion, and all right, I can maybe be successful at this. So yeah.
I'm going to read you something.
Yeah.
The women's 100-meter world record is 10.49 seconds, set by American Florence Griffith Joyner, July 16th, 1988, in Indianapolis.
That's my son's birthday. Very, very apropos on that.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
Chills right now. Amazing.
Yeah. So that was like, but football was like a whole different animal. Like, so, and there was just a lot of out of focus stuff, and I could almost see my dad like looking through my take, and that look on your father's face when you like. He was like, here it is. My son wants to be like this, this photographer, and it was like, just I felt like he was just trying to like, this is not bad, like, but it was hard, man. It was really hard. I tell you, it was not, only the best. I mean, honestly, back then, the best of the best showed up at all these events, and there was a reason for it. There was only like maybe like 20 people in the world that can shoot, sports at that level. Get every shot in focus, wherever you went, Olympics. So it was a really, it was not for the faint of heart. You really had to kind of be in a certain, and that, always looking back at it, I was happy I went through that, and, seemingly, had some success after that.
Well, you definitely put in the work. I mean, and that takes passion, and, having had the pleasure of being on the field at some sporting events, there is a magic. Rob and I talk about, like, in real life, especially in a digital age, and the the party, the cinema, the feeling, the excitement, the oh my goodness, we're going to do this event thing is real.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
in that environment with people who are excited to be there, expecting to see something, and then you're going to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then to realize or to say to yourself, because it is, you mentioned it, like it's work, like and you're on, like now you're putting pressure on yourself because you got to be better than you were before, but you're doing it. And how exciting is that?
Um, I I would wake up on a Sunday morning, like it's, let's say Green Bay, and I think I was the most excited person in the world. Like literally waking up in a hotel room knowing that, it's bright. Maybe you look outside the window and it's bright fall day, and you're about to go out to like Lambeau Field. I mean, and then you get there early, and then I'd always had this routine where I would just walk around the field by myself, like take one lap, no camera, just like, empty stadium, and just take this little walk around, did like one little loop around. And I don't do a lot of football anymore, but I still remember just like these little, like, solitude walks that I would make around the sideline. And I could still to this day feel what it was like. And just that, just love of what I did, and just like you just you soaked it all in. You soaked every little breath out of it. Honestly, it was yeah. So it was exciting. I mean, honestly, every time I walked through the tunnel and the crowd started filling in, and it was it was the best.
Can you take us to
Yeah.
that period of transition from film to digital, and what the conversations were like amongst the photographers? Was there fear? Was there enthusiasm for the ability to have this instant gratification?
Yeah. So I started, I mean, basically, like I said, late 80s, 89, 90, we started really rolling. Digital came around probably like early 2000, 2000. Actually, I remember I did a 1992 Winter Olympics with a Kodak camera that was about this big that shot digital images. You know, I don't know what it was called back then, but I remember like testing it in 92, and being like freaked out, like you could actually take an image and you could see this little black and white image in the back of the this ridiculously sized digital camera. And that was 92. But yeah, so you kind of knew it was coming. And I guess, I mean, looking back, I guess there was an excitement, that, you could see the images, but, the file sizes were like, so it was more of like, I was more of a magazine photographer where it was like important to have, file sizes, but like, the APs and the newspapers were using, and and then, I do remember, once we kind of got it rolling, it was cool. I mean, it was cool to kind of like, see the images and transmit images, from the stadium. And even though it was all like, having to, understand what Ethernet was, and understand finding dial-ups or whatever, you could find to kind of get these images. Because now, in a way, it was almost like, from a photographer's perspective, it was cool, but there was also, I used to love handing my film to like a messenger in the parking lot and then going to dinner. Like it was like, it was like a really, what I'm saying? Like, you would shoot these events and like hand something to some guy in the parking lot, and then, I was done. But now it's like, digital started coming, and now you were responsible for, not only taking the images, but transmitting, editing, and having to like, now I'm, spending hours after the game, like, where's my great steak dinner? I'm like, I'm sitting in front of just sitting in front of a laptop. I'm not a techie person. I'm from a computer standpoint. So now I'm like, I have to kind of learn, so yeah, there was definitely that. But looking back, I mean, I can't imagine what my storage unit would be like if we didn't have digital. Like it's already, it's got, negatives and transparencies that are stacked to the ceiling. So it came at a right time where you could actually didn't need like you know, 30 by 30 foot, you know, storage unit to store all these transparencies and negatives. So yeah, it was, but it was fun. Like, I mean, like, I think that instant, seeing the images, but I think I'm leaning more to the negativity of it because I never, I don't think I've ever felt the same way I felt or I feel when I handle a transparency that has the cardboard and the little writing on it, or the label I put on it, and the cuts and the percentages from when it went out. I don't think I've ever felt that way from a digital shot.
'Cause they took Christmas away. You're not
They took my
unwrapping anything.
they
You're
took
like,
my
you already
Christmas away.
know.
It was
You
you
already
just
know
knew
what it
you knew
is.
you knew you sucked, or you made the images right then and there, and
Yeah.
there was no anticipation anymore. So,
Well,
but yeah,
Rob and
but
I
looking
also
back,
talk
yeah,
about,
yeah,
we talk
yeah,
about the importance of that. You talked about having the steak dinner, like the importance of
yeah,
the blank spaces in life, like the chance to like relax.
yeah.
Like sometimes
Very
creativity happens also in the calm.
always, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, yeah. There was no question. Like I find, there are times where I think there's a lot of photographers that always have a camera on them. To me personally, I sometimes need to kind of decompress and put stuff away and just, but like you said, like literally trying to um, conceptualize the next thing. But there is a calmness, and I think even when I was making those little walks around, or I would sit in an empty seat in the stadium, that's kind of where I would kind of like gather my thoughts of, you know. What I was, hoping to achieve that day, from a creative standpoint. Yeah.
You mentioned Walter and Neil. Was
Yeah. Yeah.
there a point at a young age where you're at your dad's agency looking in
Yeah.
the light box
Yeah.
where you saw an image that not of your
Mm.
own now, but that sparked something
Yeah.
in you, that aha, or you were
Yeah. I
just
mean,
totally impressed by?
yeah, I think I mean, the Dwight Clark picture, the catch was something that as a kid, you know, you watch the game and then you're amazed that somebody was in the right spot and gets this great picture and then and the other one was like I think there was a John Stallworth picture of the Rams Steelers Super Bowl where Stallworth is like over his shoulder. It was like a tight lens, and you look at those images, and I don't think I was that into photography then, but I knew there was definitely something that like hit a chord in my head, like, all right, this is really cool. And now looking back at it, I could probably say, like, some of those images are images that, and even like, the Ollie Liston and Neil Eifert shot, like knowing that you could create an image at an event that forever and ever is thought of or remembered, and you know I guess legacy is a nice, when you're a photographer, creating images that, live beyond you. So yeah, I think looking back now, I think those have always had, some sort of meaning to me, that, you actually can create something that's historic and iconic and will live on beyond you and, your legacy. So I think, looking at a career choice, knowing that you can, that you have the capability or to shoot some of these things.
So
There you go. Yeah,
I
Serena. Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
two
yeah,
Tringalis in my house.
yeah,
This is Serena Williams at the
yeah,
US Open.
yeah,
And then, and when we get away, neither of these are game action, by the way.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Now, yeah, that's my next part of my career. The finding the off moments where you realize that the action, the peak action moment is wonderful, but as my career progressed, it was literally trying to find images in between and finding these great off moments that still told the story, but were very impactful. And you just showed like two images that like are like not game action related, but they all have but they have an impact of obviously who they are, but there is something there. The composition, the lighting, the angle, whatever it is. So, and I think looking back at my work, I mean, when I started, going through my portfolios at one point, I think, it was, it was more about those moments than it was the actual like, peak action moment. Try to like, really find, uh, because those are like, as technology became, greater and greater and autofocus and digital cameras, the action picture became a little bit, like kind of everybody was
Commoditized
getting it.
almost. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was. Like it used to be like it would be 20 guys, at a World Series or 50 guys, and maybe one guy would get the picture, like one, I'm saying like everybody was trying, but like one guy might get it. Now, the percentages are a lot higher. So that great action picture, even though very important, kind of became a little bit like, oh, it's not as cool as it used to be. So finding and telling stories and finding your own little, you know, uh, things that were more meaningful to you were important. And so yeah, it was almost like finding these little like nuggets of, that's were cool images, but not the, what people consider like peak action, let's say.
When you're capturing peak action, I just as a novice external
Yeah.
person, how
Yeah.
much of the sport do you need to know to predict like what's going to happen?
I think it's important. I do. I mean, I do get asked this a bit. I think it's important to have some semblance of knowledge of the sport you're shooting. Knowing, I mean, I would do, I would do research. I was shooting football back when, like, how often the quarterback throws to the right side as opposed to the left side.
Oh,
How,
wow.
yeah, I mean, just like, and then it was, positioning on the field, down in yardage to go, and yeah, I think especially in football, but baseball too, like, knowing everything that's going on, runner on first, two outs, gap into the outfield. I mean, hey, this might be a play at the plate, or so I think you have to, sports you have to. There's an anticipation, and the more you have, the more intelligence you have, the more information you have to kind of, you know, you might miss an image by a half a second. So it was like, how do I kind of like um, alleviate that from happening? So yeah, the more information you had, understanding of the game, understanding who's on base, how fast somebody is, who the pitchers are. Does this guy give up more? Is it uh, a pitcher that gives up more ground balls to the third baseman? So I might want to, key on the third baseman for a potential like diving catch. So like I think you just know, certain things. So yeah, any kind of information was vital, I think, to making, to at least preparing yourself for the opportunity to make an image. And I think, knowing the sport, knowing um, a little bit about it is pretty helpful as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the preparation that an artist has for their
Yeah.
work. I mean, you're making light of it, Rob, but like you put in the work. You put
The
in the
work has
work.
been there.
Like,
Yeah. Now, yeah. Man, what's his name? Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000
yeah,
hours.
10,000
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
hours.
Now, yeah. Now, yeah. I think there is a point where you do have to get to that point where you like,
yeah,
hey, you have to do it over and over, repetitive, where it becomes, it starts to become instinctive. Now
yeah.
you're not even thinking about it anymore. It's just like, peripherally you're seeing stuff happen, and it's, it's always an interesting conversation with a younger person, a photographer, because like to you it's like, well, don't you see this guy cutting across here? And they're like, no, like I don't. But like that, you just realize that it's, become very instinctful. Like, you're shooting football out of you're shooting it right eyes in the viewfinder, but your left eye, you can see, somebody, get a couple of steps on the cornerback and getting cut across and you're hoping the quarterback is seeing exactly what you're seeing, because like he's open, throw it to him, because like,
Because I'm ready. I'm
you know,
ready.
yeah,
I'm
like,
ready.
and then like, how could you not throw to him? Like, he was wide open. But yeah, I think you just have this like, you could see it, and if everything's working, and there are games that it works great. Like there are games you're on every shot, and then there are games where, you are so off. But luckily enough in my career, I think I've had more on games than off games. But yeah, so yeah.
But that's an incredible dialogue that you have as an artist with a sport, right? Because the athletes have those off, the way you're even talking about it, like I have an off game day.
Yeah, you do. Oh, like, you just, and there are images that we can't talk about right now because like they will hurt that I've missed in my life. Like there are like images that I can't even see to watch the replay. Like I'll just like turn the channel.
Of the game, you're saying of the game,
the things
and
of the game
highlights.
and the thing that I missed that like just because and I'm assuming athletes go through that too, where I'm sure Mariano Rivera has trouble watching Luis Gonzalez, hit. I'm sure he changes the channel on the times that, not that he failed, that many times, but I luckily haven't failed that many times, but close to 40 years, you do have some failure. And, there are moments in my career where I'm like, can't watch that. Can't do it.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Well,
yeah,
speaking of, like-
that elation, yeah. I remember going, and it's a little different now, but you would, when you were high as a kite, like going to the bar, a restaurant, like when you made the shot, and there are times where like, hey, everybody's going out and you missed it. That hey, I'm gonna go to my hotel and just sulk till the rest. Yeah, it was that like,
Wow.
it hurt. I mean, it really hurt. Like you were, and it was different. Like I said, editors, I think would be a little bit more. It's a little bit more forgiving now, but it was. You would hear it from the editor. He's like, "Oh man, I can't believe you missed that," and
Right.
and it
Because
was
there's
hard,
expectation
man.
on the.
It was expectation, yeah. If you were
on the
working for a
media entity
magazine
that they-
outlet, and yeah, and you would hear it like, "Oh, you didn't make that. You didn't. Where were you?" Like, and it was tough. Like you were almost like at a press conference, like having to explain yourself.
Yeah.
Like and it was always like, "Oh, somebody blocked me," or the referee got in my way, or like. Something to like, ease the pain a little bit, but deep down you knew like, I fucked up, man. Like, I literally, I missed it, and something you have to live with. There is
You know
no
what?
safety there.
This totally makes sense now as a producer and director for 16
Yeah.
years at Major League Baseball. We would work really closely with the still photographers. So actually, I first met Rob, maybe not the first time I met him, but the first time we really spent time together was the 2014 World Series in Kansas City. And I can think immediately of an image that I took of Rob actually setting up a time lapse on an A-frame ladder outside the outfield of Kauffman Stadium near a lamppost where he's got he knows exactly what he's going to line up. And it ended up being a gorgeous time lapse. I think maybe of the fountains because you can see them outside the outfield wall. But there were times where, God rest his soul, Bill Webb, who was a very famous live TV director for Fox Sports, would call me into the truck and air me out because one of my cinematographers got in his shot. Now, this is live broadcast. This isn't still photography, where if my camera guy is in his shot, he will soon be out of his shot and there'll still be a shot. But working with the still photogs, you would hear them scream from the photo box, get down, because they only have one shot at getting the shot. And there was a lot of intensity, especially in the early days, in the late 90s.
And that's still going on. We just literally had these same conversations at the World Baseball Classic. A lot of the RF stuff, the guys that now kind of, literally are on the field after the home run and kind of mirroring the guy rounding third into the
batter scoring. And
and those guys they're there to get their shot, but they do block. So we actually had a conversation with one of the guys in Houston, nice and just trying to find out like how can we find this little happy like if you back off like two steps, and give us like the shot from the first base photo box or third base photo box. So those conversations are still happening. Like, it's like there is no like, hey, switch to camera 2, switch to camera 3. There's like, you miss it, miss it. And you just, those conversations is happening today. And, so that's,
The evolution
Like
of
I
the
said,
sport, to your point, with the evolution of the, yeah, because now all of a sudden you're getting a picture of some cameraman
yeah,
running around the
yeah.
bases.
If he's in the frame, you've kind of gotten accustomed, like they're part of the scene now, but they can't be like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I have a picture of Schwarber and Judge, one of the, they're high-fiving at the plate after a home run, and the camera dude is like literally, right in between me and so it's a no shot. It's like, so like if you just move, if you were just like 3 feet to your right or left, I don't mind you being in the picture. It's just like you're part of the scene now. We've accustomed that this is part of, a part of the what it is. But yeah, but there's a point where it's a no shot, and if he's right dead center in it, you're screwed. So
Can you take us back a little bit to your childhood and
yeah.
fill us into what you were surrounded by? Was there music playing? Were there shag carpets? Was there food always on the stove? Like,
Yeah. Okay.
or
Yeah.
none of that?
Yeah.
Like, what was?
Oh
Give
yeah.
us a
No.
little
Yeah.
snapshot of the 70s.
Definitely shag carpets. There might be some plastic on couches. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe there might have been.
We had that.
Maybe definitely not my mom's house, but like my grandparents' house definitely had plastic on them. Yeah, it was, Staten Island was, we were definitely typical Italian American family, big Sunday dinner, Christmas Eve, that whole fun stuff. I had two sisters that lived with me growing up. But yeah, it was, pretty typical. You go out, play wiffle ball in the summer, wiffle ball, stickball. Then the season would change, and then it was touch football on the street, and maybe some street hockey.
Yeah.
Playing around. Definitely. I like to put the goalie stuff on. That was fun. Little League baseball. I mean, not like it is now where travel ball. It was like Little League baseball lasted like a month and a half, and then that was it for the year.
It was kids in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, but it was a lot of but like football would come and we'd play tackle football like on like some lawn somewhere, and had some bullshit football gear, and some people had like legit helmets. Some guys had like those little Hutch plastic helmets, and it was a TV show. Like when you think about it, like your friend would get knocked out, and no one thought about it. Like, oh, he'll be all right. Like he's like he can't. He's basically passed out, and
Well, Jimmy gets on his bike and rides over to mom's house and like, yo, Miss B, like Miss B.
Yeah, no question. So you came, mom would call you for dinner at 6:00. We had 4 channels. Like it was what, Gilligan's Island you'd be watching, and Happy Days, and and then like I said, I was into sports. So anything, I don't know about you guys, but I anything that was sports related, I watched. So if it was like the Masters, Indy 500, Daytona, like Wimbledon, like it was like, to me, everything was like a big deal. Like
wide world of sports.
Yeah, I know, right? Like gentlemen, start your engines. Like I wouldn't watch a race car. I wouldn't watch a car race now, but like I would never miss like the start
Memorial Day week.
Yeah, I would never miss it. Like it was like crazy. Like and like
AJ Foyt, Michael,
right? AJ Foyt, Al Unser, yeah, right. And then it was like sweet, the Kentucky Derby, So any like I like when they sung, I think the first time I went to a Kentucky Derby and they did, the Kentucky Home. What's that song they play?
Yeah,
and,
my old Kentucky Home.
Yeah, and I mean that would, I still would have hair on my arm stand up, because like as a kid you're watching it, and then you're at the start of you're there, and you're at the starting and they playing this, and you're like, man, I cannot believe this is the stuff I used to watch on TV when I was a kid, and now I'm like right here. So
so it almost sounds like sports were the vehicle for you to get into a creative profession, as opposed to creativity itself. Or was
I think
there
sports?
a moment?
Yeah, I was I used to like draw. I used to like draw, color, and paint. But I think I always had my dad was a photographer, so I think I had it in my blood. But yeah, sports was like kind of like the vehicle that kind of pushed me to like trying to do something in the creative world. I mean, I think obviously I don't think I missed this last time, but I went to this. When I wanted to be a photographer, I went to School of Visual Arts for like 3 days. I thought like I should probably learn photography, right? Like maybe this is a good thing, you know. I want to be a photographer, so I went to school of visual arts and, you know, hey, what do you want to do when you know, like, what's your like? Oh, I want to be a sports photographer. And they looked at me like I was like, you know, like three heads. Like they were like, what is that? What is sports photography? Like, so it was like, you know, your first assignment to go out and shoot like, you know, homeless people on the street and some fine, you know, artsy stuff. And I checked out like immediately. I was like, I don't know what this is. I have no desire to go shoot street photography. I want to be on the sidelines. I think I left after like 3 days. I was like,
Yeah.
so I'm done. I can't. So, yeah, sports. Yeah, to answer your question, sports is probably the thing that kind of pushed my creativity and like I said, but I don't think I was very creative when I first. It was all. I mean, it was about. I was freelance, and even though my dad had a company, I was flicking the bill for everything. So I was plane tickets, film, gear. So it was a business early on. Like, I mean, as much as I kind of like joked about having fun, like, yeah, you know, when you're spending, you know, $1,500 on a weekend to fly yourself to California, you know, because like, yeah, you're spending film and
And so your
processing
work
and
during the week, you were still working that job at night
I
during
was
this
working a night
entire.
job. Yeah, I was working. I'd be working a night job. Whatever money I'd made, I bought it to buying plane tickets and film, and then I'd fly myself to a game on a weekend. But the goal there was to like make good images because if you made great images of Bo Jackson, for example, or Jerry Rice, or Barry Sanders, or Aikman, whoever, those images sold like it was like gold, man. I mean, it was like if you had like a tack sharp image of Bo Jackson, like you made a lot of money. Like it was, and that image would never be in your office. It would literally go from here to like Sport Magazine to some card company that Nike would call or Gatorade, and like these images went around the country by FedEx. Like, it's something I talked about. Nobody understands. Like, it's like it was the Wild West. It was really no like rights and things like that. Getty Images, like so, and there was a few of us that would travel the country and anticipate like who was the next great athlete or who do I need new images of and once you had that collection you could do really well. I mean so it was a business, so it really wasn't like obviously creative, obviously taking pictures, but there was a business art to like, hey, I need this guy Tiger Woods is coming up, like we gotta go get him, or we have to go shoot, whoever this new rookie is. But like, but yeah, so it was a business as far as like because you were flicking huge amounts of bills, you might shoot
Yeah.
50, $60 on a weekend, even back then
So
it
not
wasn't.
not just has the distribution medium changed from
Yeah,
print to
yeah,
digital, not just has the format changed from film to digital, the way the
yeah,
business monetizes itself
yeah,
has changed as well because
yeah,
photographers used to own the rights to those
yeah.
images.
Yeah, and I still own the right to a decent amount of my images, but there was a point where, it just, nobody was going to hire you unless you signed your rights away or they owned the rights, for the most part. Um, so yeah, so that we're in that world now where it's like
Right.
you could work, but you're gonna have to kind of give your rights away. But I still luckily I still have a good amount of my stuff that I own, a good collection of the work I have. But I guess you can still do it now. I mean, but you have to kind of flick the bill, and you have to, and I don't know if the back end is as rewarding as it used to be. I mean, and if so, it's I mean, the price of images have completely gone another direction. I mean, like I get statements now for like a few bucks where like I was selling
Wow.
stuff like backs of cards back when were like $150 for like a little you know a little headshot
Wow.
on the back of a flare or a Topps trading card would
Yeah.
be so you could shoot a football game and just like you know get 10 backs of cards
That
and
paid for your
whatever.
trip.
Yeah. So, and then if you want me to keep going, so yeah, so that's how the stock photography part of my business, and then around I say late 90s, ESPN Magazine came around, like around 97. And that's where, I mean, I think in the notes we had, like, there was a pivot there where I kind of got bored just shooting vertical trading cards, posters, even though it was fun and it was a great, you do get to a point where, all right, I've made that same picture of Steve Young or John Elway, vertical, classic, and great. But, now it was like, so ESPN Magazine, and, it was always a Sports Illustrated was like the thing, like you wanted to, that was your aspiration. But like SI had their like New York guys, and they were like dug in, and I was like, wow, man, there's no way I'm gonna fit in here. So, but ESPN Magazine came around like around 97. They, prototypes. We actually helped them as an agency. We helped them with their prototypes, but that was my like, all right, I need to kind of like go for this, and I put everything I had into it. Like made sure I was up there, showed my face around, and when the magazine launched, I think in '98, I was like their like sports action guy because they had these like 3 double page spreads every issue, and that's where we kind of really put a lot of our effort into in finding obviously cool events, but making sure from these events that we find these like great double pages. So my at that point my creativity then took over, where it was like, all right, now I'm not shooting verticals, trading cards. I'm now trying to tell a story with like one picture, and would put everything into it. And that's where like I think the creative part of me really started taking off, where I can now kind of use, it was like, all right, now this is, I actually remember the first time I shot for them. One of my good friends now, an editor back then, this guy, my buddy Jim Serber. At the point I was shooting it like I was shooting a wire service game. It was like, making sure I got every touchdown and sack and whatnot. And he looked at the take and he's like, all right. He's like, but he goes, it looks like a wire service photographer. And I was like, yeah. He's like, if we want a wire service picture, we can get it. He goes, we want your vision of the game, not, and what you showed us like in what, when you were coming up here, you were showing us all these cool things, but that moment it was like, oh, I can't miss this touchdown. And he was like, well, we can get that whenever we want. Like, but we want, like, we want to see the, we want to see the, we want to see your vision of the game. And that's where it really kind of took, it started taking, it started making sense to me. Like, all right, you're here, somebody's hiring you, they're hiring you for a reason, and be more of the reason somebody wants to fly you around the country. And because it has to be, it's what they're selling, they're buying you, they're buying your talent, your vision. And I think from that point forward is where I started to kind of like, all right, this is more about like how I see it, and somebody trusting you to like, hey, this is, this guy's got a cool look, he's got a cool vision, he sees it in a different way, and how to emphasize that as my career went forward.
Amazing. You got permission and you took it.
Yeah, you had it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, I think everyone has their own paths, but like I remember, succinctly, like that was, all right, here's my chance to now, put my take on everything, and then I started looking at photographers like like a John. I would see guys, a David Burnett or a John Hewitt. I don't know what those names make, but like if you watch their work and where they literally, they weren't really caring about like the image of the game. It was more about like how they saw it. And it was almost like a feature writer and a, somebody who just recapped the game, and what did you want to be? Not that there was any wrong answer. There was guys that, hey, I made sure I got the winning touchdown, but there were guys like, hey, I'm finding this unique angle, this unique story, and I became what I consider more of a feature photographer, where it was like, hey, I'm seeing it from my perspective, and someone's buying into what I have to offer. And that was always cool, and I still think that's something I have going for me today, where,
From an outside perspective, just the 2 photos that Rob showed us of yours that are not live action moments speak to that. Yeah. It's like, you're capturing the moment of the intensity in a different way because of all the work that you've put in to understand the game.
Yeah.
And the athletes that play it.
Yeah. My greatest compliment is when somebody sees an image and doesn't see the photo credit, and will tell me like, I knew that was your shot. just because that's to me like the greatest compliment. Like when someone doesn't even need the photo credit, and that looked like your shot. I knew that was your shot before I even looked at the photo credit. Just the look of it, and that to me is always the greatest compliment. When someone can see that and kind of understand like there's a style that you have and a style that you bring to anything that you shoot. So that's something I always kind of like, yeah, I bring to like every event I go to is like, what's my style? What am I trying to do here? And, can I keep, obviously you try to elevate it and push it, but, there is, like Scorsese has his style and, directors and, everyone has their, Paul Thomas Anderson, whoever, Spielberg, everyone has their thing. And you always want to like, you could deviate a little bit, but, at the core, you are this, and
Yeah.
There could for sure be a part 2 and a part 3 of this conversation. I feel like we're only scratching the surface. So thank you. When it takes, you mentioned great directors and yourself are an expert at what you do. And it takes getting through that plateau or some of those like valleys where you're maybe disenfranchised or bummed out to actually look back at a collection of work and say, oh my God, I really did do something pretty magical. So Rob, thank you for producing such magical work, sticking with it, and providing us with such beautiful imagery. Thank you.
Appreciate it. No, thanks. Love talking about it. And anytime you want to do it again, I'm ready to go. Can talk all day about this stuff.
So let's close things up with the old mixtape. What three songs are on your mixtape for this week?
Oh my God. You asked this question. I was like, I don't know why the Moneyball song always is like feels very cinematic to me. The what's it? This Will Destroy You. The Mighty Rio Grande. That's the song.
Oh, but I don't. Okay.
You know that one?
No.
If you hear, you know the Moneyball. You know the
Yeah,
Moneyball. It's like it's as cinematic of a. If I ever was to do like a little reel with images and I can get the rights to do it, I would go that way.
The Mighty Rio Grande. This Will Destroy You.
Yeah, if you watch Moneyball and anytime they do like a little cinematic little snippet of even a current of they always have that in the background and the beat is right and you can kind of like it has this little tension build up and when you were talking about photography and things that would be one. Two, only, and you said like what song? The first Super Bowl I went to in New Orleans, Kenny Loggins' "This Is It" was playing, and I distinctly remember walking on the field and hearing Kenny Loggins, and that always will be in my head of a.
I love that.
And I don't know. Every time I hear it, I could feel myself walking on the Superdome turf, and just this song, and I was like, and it was "This Is It," and it was like, I was as excited as you can be, and
oh my God,
that brings me back. I was going through my Spotify, and I guess if another one that has a little bit of a "The Show Goes On" by Bruce Hornsby. Another one that feels very very like I don't know. Again, you could ask me tomorrow. It would be 3 different ones, but like today, that's who we're going with. A very oddball collection of eclectic music prosing there, whatever you want to say. But yeah, that's what I go. But yeah, great. To me, it's I always
thank you for sharing.
You hear these things. Yeah. Anyway, that's my take on that.
Munir?
I got 3 for you that are based on the theme of our show, The Golden Hour by Kacey Musgraves, because everybody loves the golden hour when you're shooting.
Maze and Frankie Beverly also have a golden hour song that love it.
Nice.
Eye of the Tiger, Survivor, because sports kind of like, and that for me is that hype up, like I'm feeling it immediately. You hear those
the mile run, Munir, the mile
always
run.
The mile run. When we were growing up, Rob, they would play that song during a mile run.
They would wheel the record player out. They would wheel the record player outside to play.
I would watch, the Rocky theme when I was a kid. Like I remember like putting like those, and then literally like running around my basement and shit. Yeah, like
Absolutely. When I go to Philly, I still run up the steps.
You do? Yeah, yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Wherever
I had like,
I'm staying.
yeah, that's funny. I've never done that. I always wanted to do that, but I've never have. Yeah.
And then Glory Days, Bruce Springsteen, because
Fair enough.
because
Yeah. He's pitching. He's pitching it.
Well, so my first one is Thunder Road.
Okay, another Springsteen. Wow. Springsteen.
He's really pretty cinematic, right? In terms of his writing, screen door slams. Like immediately, you know what that imagery comes to your mind. Mary's Dress Ways.
Yep.
Boom, right there.
Yep.
So, Camera by Wilco.
Okay. Very cool.
Yep. I need a camera to my eye. Which lies have I been hiding? Which echoes belong? I love that in terms of what imagery we retain and choose to reflect on, and which ones have we been like sheltering and keeping hidden. And then Long Walk by Jill Scott, because immediately when I hear Long Walk, I'm transcended to a place where I'm visualizing everything that comes on a walk. And I have to say, since nobody said it, Paul Simon Kodachrome, right? Like,
yeah, I thought about it. It seemed pretty,
too on the nose. But if we're gonna release something on Spotify, that can be for sure a bonus track.
I did have the Cure Pictures of You. I did have that in my,
Oh,
nice.
Yeah. No, but I love the personal tie-in, especially the Kenny Loggins.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little more personal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. Dude, thank you for sharing your time with us and your experience and your stories.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
We love you.
We'll pick this up some other time soon.
Sounds good, brother. Bye.